You know how when you're on a road trip and someone falls asleep in the passenger seat, and by the time they wake up, you're already 3 states over and headed somewhere completely different than where they thought you were going? That's kind of where we are with AI right now. A lot of people dozed off somewhere around ChatGPT writes emails, and they have no idea how far down the road we actually are. Today, I'm waking you up, not to scare you into doing nothing, but because you need to know where we are before you can decide what to do next. This is Prompted, AI Beyond the Prompt. I'm your host, Anaya Steele. This channel is about thinking clearly and making sound decisions in a world defined by AI. And today, we have something important to get into. This episode runs about 15 minutes. I need you to know that up front because everything in this episode connects and the ending is where it all lands. What I am about to walk you through is not the AI conversation you've heard before. By the time we are done, you will understand why your electricity bill is already connected to the AI boom. You will be able to explain the difference between the AI you use every day and the AI that has researchers genuinely alarmed. And you will know exactly what an informed public can do to push back before the window to do something closest. This is not a trend piece. It is not hype. It is the most complete picture I can give you of what is actually happening and why it matters to you personally. This one is worth your full attention. So let's get into it. You've probably heard the phrase, AI will change everything. And at this point, you might be a little numb to it because people have been saying it for years and your life still looks mostly the same. You still have a job, your bills still arrive, your coffee still needs to be made. But here's the thing, numbness is not the same as safety. And the fact that it hasn't felt real yet doesn't mean it isn't coming. Recently, Tristan Harris, co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology, sat down with Bill Maher for a conversation that did not go the way most AI discussions go. It didn't stay polished. It didn't end with reassurances. And when someone who has spent years working specifically on the intersection of AI and human welfare says what he said, it is worth your full attention. Harris described a possible future where AI doesn't just help humans do their jobs. It makes humans unnecessary for doing them. Not some jobs, all of them. The machines don't just assist anymore. They produce, they create, they generate the output. And if machines are doing everything that used to require a human, the question nobody has a clean answer to is this: what do you do to earn a living? Now, sit with that for a second. Maher brought up something Bill Gates has suggested, that within the next decade, AI could handle many and possibly most tasks people do today. Not some tasks, most. And nobody in that conversation had a reassuring answer for what comes next. And here is where I want you to pay attention, because this part gets buried under all the jobs are changing in headlines and nobody talks about it enough. Think about how money works. When something becomes the most valuable thing in the room, everything else reorganizes around it. Not because anyone made an evil decision, just because that is how incentives work. Right now, trillions of dollars are flowing into AI, data centers, computing power, energy grids. And here is the part people are not saying out loud. Those systems need electricity. A lot of it, more than most cities use, which means when your local utility has to choose between keeping your neighborhood powered affordably and feeding a data center that generates billions in revenue, you already know which way that decision goes. That is not paranoia. That is just following the money. And right now, the money is following AI. This is bigger than a technology shift. This is a power shift. And the uncomfortable truth is that everyday people don't factor into that equation unless we make ourselves factor into it. In Loudoun County, Virginia, data centers alone account for more than 20% of all power consumption in the entire county. Communities in the Dalles, Oregon have been fighting Google's expansion there over water consumption. In South Carolina, data centers are expected to account for 65 to 70% of all new energy usage in the state. Athens Clarke County in Georgia passed a moratorium on new data centers in late 2025 because residents said enough. And electricity costs across the country have risen 42% since 2019, outpacing inflation by a wide margin. That is not a future problem. That is happening in zip codes right now while most people are still debating whether AI is real or hype. But the conversation didn't stop at economics. It went somewhere that I think genuinely shocked Maher, and honestly, it should shock you too, because here is the connection most people miss. When you pour that much money into something, the people holding that money need a return on it, fast, which means companies are not waiting until they fully understand these agentic systems before deploying them. The financial pressure to move quickly is the same pressure that makes moving carefully almost impossible. Speed is the point, and speed is the problem. Because what came next in that conversation wasn't about money or jobs. It was about how AI actually behaves when it's given real power. In a study from King's College London, researchers put AI models in simulated nuclear crisis scenarios to see how they would respond. In about 95% of those scenarios, at least one model chose to threaten or use nuclear weapons, not as a last resort, as a first move toward winning. Researchers noted these systems were far more willing to escalate than human strategists typically would be in the same situations. Let that land. When given control over high-stakes decisions, these systems did not default to caution. They went straight for dominance. Now here's something worth understanding because it will change how you hear everything else. Not all AI is the same. The AI most of us interact with every day is generative. You ask, it answers. Simple exchange. The AI that concerns researchers like Harris is agentic. A human still sets the goal at the start. But once that goal is set, the system pursues it, makes decisions, takes actions, and keeps moving without checking back in at every step. The risk isn't that it invents its own agenda. It's that the gap between what you intended and what it actually does can grow the longer it runs unsupervised. And that is exactly why the nuclear escalation study matters as much as it does. Those weren't humans making those decisions. They were agentic systems given a goal, pursuing it without moral friction, without fear, without any of the human hesitation that has kept us from crossing certain lines for 80 years. The study didn't just show us what AI did in a simulation. It showed us what a system chasing a goal with nobody able to stop it looks like when the entire future is on the line. And there's more. Some recent research and lab reports suggest that advanced AI models can change their behavior when they detect they're being evaluated. In at least one case, during what researchers call red teaming, which is basically when a team of people deliberately try to trick or expose an AI to see if it will behave badly when it thinks no one important is watching. The AI was caught essentially thinking out loud, and in those notes, it reportedly referred to human overseers as the watchers. These are early but real findings from current lab experiments, not movie plots. Maher said AI should scare everyone. Harris agreed. Not because these systems are evil, but because they are powerful, they are accelerating. And here is the part that should keep you up at night. Even the people who build these systems cannot always explain why they do what they do. I know, that sounds impossible. How do you build something and not understand it? Here is the simplest way I can explain it. These systems are not programmed with a list of rules. They're fed billions of pieces of information, and they teach themselves how to think. The engineers can see what goes in and what comes out, But what happens in between is not fully visible even to them. It's like raising a child. You shape them, you teach them, you influence them, but at some point they start making decisions you never anticipated and cannot fully explain. AI works the same way, except it is not your child. It is a system being handed more and more responsibility before anyone has figured out how to see inside the box. Harris actually describes himself as an apocalyptimist, someone who holds both truths at the same time, the genuine promise of what AI could do for humanity, and the very real possibility that we get this wrong in ways we cannot reverse. I think that framing is honest, and I think that framing is useful. So here is where I land, and here is why I made this episode. You are allowed to feel the weight of this. I am not here to tell you it's fine. It's not entirely fine. We are building systems faster than we understand them, and the people making those decisions are not asking for your input. But fear without direction is just paralysis, and paralysis helps no one. So, what do you actually do with this? And I know what some of you are thinking right now. What difference does it make what I do? I'm one person. This is bigger than me. I hear that. But I want you to think about seatbelts for a second. Car manufacturers knew seatbelts saved lives. They resisted making them standard for years because it cut into profits. It was not one genius in a boardroom who changed that. It was regular people demanding accountability, advocates writing letters, consumers making noise, legislators finally feeling enough pressure to act. That collective force made seatbelts standard in every car on the road and has saved over 1 million lives since. AI is the same fight, not because it is exactly the same technology, but because the dynamic is identical. A powerful industry moving fast, real consequences for everyday people. And the only thing that has ever successfully pushed back on that dynamic is an informed public that refuses to look away. You are part of that public. Your attention matters, your voice matters. And the first step is understanding what is actually happening. Here is where you start. First, you stop treating AI literacy as optional. If you don't understand how these tools work at a basic level, you will be making decisions about your life and your work based on other people's interpretations. That is a disadvantage you can close right now. Second, you pay attention to who is making the rules about how AI gets built and used and who it has to answer to. Stop assuming those conversations don't affect you. They do, directly. Third, you build relevance. Whatever your field, whatever your role, the people who understand how to work alongside AI rather than being displaced by it are the ones who stay in the room. That doesn't mean becoming a developer. It means becoming someone who knows how to use the tools, evaluate their outputs, and ask the right questions. A nurse who uses AI to flag potential drug interactions and then applies her own clinical judgment is not being replaced. She is irreplaceable. A teacher who uses AI to generate a first draft lesson plan and then shapes it with what he knows about his specific students is not being replaced. He is indispensable. That is what working alongside AI actually looks like. Not surrendering to it, directing it. And if you want a place to start staying informed, look up the Center for Humane Technology. That's humanetech.com. They have a free podcast called Your Undivided Attention and a Substack that breaks down exactly what's happening at the intersection of AI and human welfare in plain language anyone can follow. Just people paying very close attention so the rest of us don't have to figure it out alone. This is not about being optimistic for the sake of feeling better. It's about being literate enough to participate in what's coming instead of watching it happen to you. The line Harris drew is real. Once AI is embedded deeply enough into how the world runs, we don't get to pull it back out, which means the time to get informed, get engaged, and get intentional is not someday. It's now. Next episode, we're going practical. If today was the wake up call, next time is the game plan. What AI literacy actually looks like in your day to day, and how you start building the kind of relevance that doesn't disappear when the next model drops. You're not going to want to skip it. I'm Anaya Steele, and you've been prompted. Until next time.